The Galactic Council's expedition to Kepler 442b was supposed to be routine. Survey the planet, catalog the wildlife, establish preliminary terraforming protocols. What they hadn't expected was for their ship to crash land in the middle of the most hostile predator territory on the continent. Commander Zethkar of the Vorthak Empire flexed his forearms nervously as he surveyed their group. His species had conquered 17 star systems through sheer physical might, standing 8 feet tall with chitinous armor plating and razor-sharp claws. Beside him, Dr. Nixara's tentacles writhed anxiously. Her aquatic cephalon people were renowned for their incredible intelligence and psychic abilities. Then there was Captain Rock, whose rock-like Litharian physiology could withstand plasma fire and crushing gravitational forces. And then there was Sarah Chen. The human stood barely 5.5 feet tall, her pale skin already showing signs of sunburn from the alien star. Her fragile-looking limbs seemed laughably inadequate compared to her companions. When the Council had insisted on including a human representative in the expedition, the other species had protested. Humans were new to the galactic community, barely a century since first contact. They had no natural armor, no psychic abilities, no enhanced strength. They were, by all accounts, the weakest species ever admitted to the Council. "We need to reach the extraction point," Zethkar growled, pointing his clawed appendage toward a mountain range 50 kilometers away. "The rescue ship will arrive in 72 hours. Dr. Nixara's mental probe swept the area, her consciousness recoiling almost immediately. The local predators, their minds are like razors. Pure aggression. I've never encountered anything so savage. Then we move fast and quiet," Captain Rock rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "My people can march for days without rest." Sarah said nothing, simply shouldering her modest pack and checking her equipment. The others had already dismissed her as dead weight, a political addition who would slow them down when speed meant survival. They hadn't been walking for 2 hours when the first attack came. The Kepler stalker burst from the undergrowth like a nightmare-given form. 12 feet of rippling muscle, 6 legs ending in bone-crushing claws, and a mouthful of teeth designed to shear through titanium plating. It moved with the fluid grace of an apex predator that had never known defeat. Zethkar's combat training kicked in immediately. He launched himself at the creature, all forearms striking in perfect coordination. His claws, sharp enough to cut through starship hull plating, barely scratched the stalker's hide. The creature backhanded him with casual contempt, sending the 8-foot warrior crashing into a tree. Captain Rock charged next, his stone-like fists hammering against the predator's flanks. The impacts echoed like artillery fire, but the stalker merely turned and raked its claws across his chest, carving deep furrows in the supposedly impenetrable Litharian hide. Dr. Nixara attempted a psychic assault, her tentacles glowing as she projected waves of mental force. The stalker paused for a moment, then let out a sound that might have been laughter. Its primitive mind was too alien, too simple to be affected by her sophisticated mental techniques. In 30 seconds, 3 of the galaxy's most formidable species lay broken and bleeding. The stalker turned toward Sarah with obvious anticipation. Here was the weakest prey of all, soft, slow, defenseless. It took a step forward, savoring the moment. Sarah didn't run. Instead, she did something that made no sense to any of them. She smiled. "Hey there, beautiful," she said softly, her voice carrying a strange musical quality. "You're magnificent, aren't you? Look at those muscles, that perfect killing form. You're exactly what your environment made you to be." The stalker paused, head tilting with predator curiosity. Sarah began to move, not away but closer. Her movements were fluid, confident, hypnotic. She raised her hands slowly, palms out, making herself appear larger while simultaneously projecting calm dominance. "That's right," she continued, her voice never wavering. "I see you. I respect you. But right now my friends are hurt and I need you to back down." The impossible happened. The apex predator, the nightmare that had effortlessly demolished 3 galactic warriors, took a step backward. Sarah stepped forward to match it. For 10 full minutes they engaged in a bizarre dance, Sarah advancing, the stalker retreating, neither breaking eye contact. She spoke constantly, her voice weaving patterns of authority and respect that bypassed conscious thought, and spoke directly to something deeper. Finally, the stalker lowered its massive head in what could only be described as a nod of acknowledgement. It turned and melted back into the jungle as silently as it had appeared. The silence that followed was deafening. "How?" Dr. Nixara whispered, her voice filled with awe. Sarah knelt beside Zethkar, already pulling medical supplies from her pack. Pack behavior, she said simply. Every predator understands dominance hierarchies. You just have to speak their language. But you're... Captain Rock struggled to sit up, wincing as his wounds stretched. You're so small, so weak. Sarah's hands worked efficiently, applying field dressings and administering pain medication. Weak? She glanced up with that same enigmatic smile. My species survived ice ages, plagues, and global wars before we even discovered fire. We domesticated wolves just by being more stubborn than they were. We crossed oceans in wooden boats because we couldn't stand not knowing what was on the other side. She stood up, shouldering her pack again. Physical strength isn't the only kind of strength. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the room is the one that doesn't look dangerous at all. The journey to the extraction point took 2 days. The other species, still recovering from their injuries, struggled with the pace. Zethkar's steps grew increasingly unsteady. Dr. Nixara's mental reserves were depleted from constant psychic scanning for threats. Captain Rock's stone-like endurance finally began to crack under the alien world's harsh conditions. Sarah, meanwhile, seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. She rationed their water with mathematical precision, identified edible plants with casual expertise, and led them through terrain that would have challenged a military unit. When Zethkar finally collapsed on the second day, unable to continue, she didn't hesitate. Climb on, she said, crouching down. I cannot, Zethkar protested weakly. I weigh over 400 pounds. You'll be crushed. Trust me. With careful positioning and leverage that spoke of deep understanding of physics and anatomy, Sarah somehow managed to support the massive Vorthak warrior on her back. Her legs trembled with the effort, but she didn't stop. Step by agonizing step, she carried him toward salvation. Dr. Nixara and Captain Rock watched in stunned silence as this supposedly weak human bore a load that should have been impossible for her species. Her breathing was labored. Sweat poured down her face, but her pace never faltered. Humans, she panted between steps, we're persistence hunters. We didn't run fast, we just never stopped running. We didn't give up, ever. They reached the extraction point with 6 hours to spare. As the rescue ship descended through the atmosphere, Zethkar looked at Sarah with new understanding. We misjudged your species, he admitted. We saw only physical weakness. Sarah helped him stand as the ship's medical team rushed toward them. That's okay, she said. Most people do. It's actually kind of an advantage. Later, as they traveled back to Council Space, Dr. Nixara approached Sarah in the ship's observation deck. I've been analyzing what happened back there, she said. Your interaction with the stalker? There was something else, wasn't there? Something beyond pack dynamics. Sarah smiled as she watched the stars stream past. Want to know a secret? That wasn't the first apex predator my species has faced down. We've been doing it for millennia, sometimes with tools, sometimes with fire, sometimes with just attitude and absolutely zero quit. She turned to face the brilliant scientist. The thing about humans is this: we're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. But we're the ones who looked at a universe full of bigger, meaner things and said, yeah, so what? We're the species that sees impossible odds as a personal challenge. Dr. Nixara's tentacles curled in what passed for a smile among her people. No wonder the council was so eager to include you. They weren't looking for another warrior race or another intellectual powerhouse. No, Sarah agreed, settling back to watch the stars. They were looking for the crazy ones, the ones who don't know when to give up, the ones who carry 8-foot predators on their backs just because someone needs carrying. As news of the expedition spread through Council Space, the story took on legendary proportions. Humans, it turned out, weren't weak at all. They were something far more dangerous. They were stubborn beyond all reason, adaptable beyond measure, and absolutely categorically refused to accept defeat. In the end, that made them the most formidable species the galaxy had ever encountered.